Yeah, that sluggish YouTube trying to keep up with the nimble Department of Natural Resources.
And it looks like we are on. So, hi, everybody. Welcome to the Ask the Climatologist live stream presented by the Minnesota Department of Natural Resources. My name is Kim Pletica. I am the Assistant Communications Director for the DNR. And we have with us today 3 experts from the State Climatology Office. And I'm going to ask each of you to wave when I announce you. So Kenny Blumenfeld is a senior climatologist, and he tells me climate keeps him on the edge of his seat. So we're going to find out why today. Pete Boulay is a climatologist, and he has kept the weather log off and on since 1980. So that dates you, Pete.
A little bit.
And Luigi Romolo, he is the Minnesota State climatologist, and he loves to solve twisty puzzles. And I think that weather is probably one of them. So we are inviting all of your questions today. Please let us know what kind of questions you might have about the climate or weather or climate science. And so let me start us off there. Yesterday, there was a bit of a debate going on via email about whether we actually had snow back on July the 4th, both in 1977 and 1992. Can all of you kind of talk a little bit about that debate, why it's mushroomed, and why there are some people who believe we did and others who believe we don't or didn't?
Take it away, Pete.
Yeah, well, I could start it off and you guys could chime in. So for years and years and years, there's always been these mysterious reports of snowfall on the 4th of July. And every time we try to investigate it, it always kind of leads to a dead end. So, and I'm not sure, of all the background, it's interesting talking with people. We try to catch up and see what happens. And we haven't ever really been able to verify it until this week. We actually got a lot of feedback back from somebody up in Ely from July 4th, 1992. And they very emphatically say it snowed up in Ely in 1992. I'm not going to go so far as say it snowed in Ely. I will say they saw ice pellets in Ely. For me, that's the only thing that could have went through that warm layer and reached the ground. I don't think like snowflakes. There was no snowball fight on Main Street in Ely in 1992 outside Siegel or Mucklucks or anything like that. So doubtful. But Kenny has lots of friends that were up there on July the 4th, 1992. So we've been going back and forth.
Yeah, so I think the reason Kim and everyone in Minnesota, we love our winter and we have lore associated with our winter. And I think the idea that winter could even show its head in the cultural middle of summer is it's just a really exciting concept. And of course, as much as we love a good, exciting concept, we are a scientific organization. And in our world, if there are claims, there needs to be some kind of data or some kind of evidence. And what we had previously was an awful lot of anecdotal evidence. And Pete has been tracking these down for all sorts of snow-related middle of summer claims. And a lot of times all you have are really fuzzy memories that don't necessarily get corroborated by any other fuzzy memories or any hard evidence or any data. But the one that kind of stood out, at least to me, was July 4th, 1992, because I have friends from the Iron Range, and I actually met them in the fall of 1992, and they very vividly remembered it snowing on the 4th of July. And it creates a little bit of a different situation because a lot of the emails that Pete gets and a lot of the people claiming they saw snow, they're from other years. They're from years gone by. I remember this one time, and it turns out there seems to be, in many cases, some confusion. Well, was it really the 4th of July or was it Memorial Day? Was it really snow or was it something else? But this one, we've now heard from a number of people, including some in journalism, that there was something that wasn't rain falling from the sky that day. It was cold. If you look at the weather charts, we were on the cold side of a low pressure system and there was some precipitation falling. And so, yeah, we can't verify that for sure it snowed, but I thought considering that climatologists can get pretty pedantic and pretty deep about what kind of precipitation has fallen, I think it's likely that there was some kind of icy precipitation that day that might not have been technically snow, but it might have been graupel or sleet or something kind of in that same family of frozen precipitation. I don't think it was hail, because hail requires a large updraft and very strong convection, and we just wouldn't have had that kind of ingredient that day. But yeah, it's just an exciting conversation that kind of, I think it gets people's imaginations going, and people love trying to find a place for winter at any time of the year in Minnesota.
Well, yeah. And speaking of that, winter, I mean, we all love to complain about winter, but it is, the calling card of Minnesota. Has it snowed in every month in Minnesota or no?
Well, officially, it has not snowed in every month in Minnesota. So if you look at official weather stations, this is National Weather Service volunteer stations. And there was one up in Winton during this event in 1992. And I was hoping to see a T for trace under the snow column. And the discussion right there, case closed, something happened. Of course, they mentioned precipitation, but not anything solid, unfortunately, for us. So it made our job harder. So right now, as it stands, the last measurable snow is June 6th in Mizpah. I can't remember the year offhand. If you go to our mysterious July 4th snow, June 4th, 1935 is the latest official measured snow, Koochiching County. And then the earliest snow is a trace at the Duluth Airport, August 31st, 1949. So right now, officially, that is what's in the books.
So essentially every month but
Except
July
Yeah.
has snow.
That's right.
But that's what makes the July 4th claim so difficult too, is that that's right in the middle of summer. I mean, Pete just named, what was it, June 4th to August 31st. And so basically between then we've got no official reports of snow, but then right in the middle of that period when we're basically at the hottest, we do have a big spike in reports, and not just from 1992. There's something, there's kind of something special about July 4th. It's always got to be July 4th. It's never
always July 4th.
Never July 7th, right, Pete?
No,
it's not.
That's
it's not
always bothered me.
July 4th.
Yeah, isn't that weird? Why July 4th? And I'm talking multiple people, multiple years, multiple locations have claimed this, not just 92.
And many times we dismiss it as, cottonwood fluff or ash from a wildfire, but this 4th of July thing has become somewhat of an urban legend, and it's really unfortunate that for this Ely event in 1992 that we don't have any solid evidence of the precipitation that occurred, because I think Kenny's right. I think we were on the cold side of a low pressure system. It was likely graupel or something like that, but without anything to back it up, we just don't know.
You're saying it's hard to know what happened?
That's right. No evidence. That's all I'm asking, no evidence.
So, okay, while we're on this particular topic, what are we're clearly broadcasting today on a day that is unseasonably cool. At least at my house, it's probably only in the mid 60s right now. Talk a little bit about that. I mean, we see these kind of fluctuations quite a bit throughout the summer. I remember covering the state fair as a reporter one year, and it was cold. I was wearing a jacket. So talk a little bit about the climate as a whole, what you're seeing, and what these fluctuations mean.
Lou, why don't you start that one off?
Yeah, sure. So there are two transition seasons, spring and fall, when we're coming out of winter and into summer, and when we're coming out of summer into fall. And the reason that it gets warmer in the summers, our days get longer, our sun angle gets higher, but the polar front, which is a hat, if you think of it, of cold air that sits over the North Pole, migrates southward during the fall. And the wind that moves, the air that moves primarily from west to east during this time doesn't always move from west to east. Sometimes it goes in a sinusoidal pattern. And if we get caught into one of those troughs, we can have unseasonably colder temperatures like today. When we're underneath a ridge, we're getting pushed in warm air. We call it warm air advection from the south. And Pete, I think was it 1931, which had the highest state fair temperature. We're definitely in a ridge there, but yeah. So this time of year, it's a mixed bag.
Yep. Highest temperature in Ferris history is 104 degrees on September 10th, actually in September 1931. So you're right.
Yes. People of Minnesota, please note that Pete Boulay actually has the list of all the different climate records right in front of him.
Yeah,
I got to be quick.
And I think the thing that makes it so also just so variable here, Kim, is that we're in the middle of a continent. You know, we're basically equal distance between the oceans, both south and east, so the Atlantic and especially the Gulf of Mexico, which is our main supply of moisture. But we're about the same distance from that as we are to the Rockies to the west, which is a source of really dry air. And of course, you just go to the north, and you got, the prairies of Canada are about the same distance away to our north. So we get these large variations. They're just baked into our climate. It's part of being in Minnesota. Sorry, Lou, you were saying something.
Yeah, no, you covered exactly what I was about to say.
So that makes me wonder, it comes up quite often when we talk about climate change. People often mistake weather, the variations in weather, as a reason to either believe or disbelieve climate change. Can you all talk a little bit about that?
We'll let Mr. Climate Change take that one.
Oh gosh, Mr. Climate Change.
Put
I've been branded right here live for our audiences. Yeah, I mean, it's understandably difficult for people to kind of keep it all straight because we have an inherently variable climate. But we also have seen trends in our climate that are unmistakable. And when we talk about trends, the kind of simple way of describing it is, well, has there been a change in the way some climate variable is behaving, or maybe multiple climate variables? But if you go a little deeper, what you're really looking for is a statistically significant change in the statistical behavior of those climate variables. And in Minnesota, it's been temperature and precipitation, and it's especially winter temperatures. They've been increasing. In other words, our winters have been getting warmer. And even though our whole year on average is getting warmer, if you kind of take it apart, it's really driven by winter warming and by really the coldest times of winter warming. All that said, that does not mean that we'll never get cold again. And it doesn't mean that every single winter is going to be warm. And I think this is where people get very confused. There's no climate science anywhere that suggests that the changing climate means that the existing variability is going to go away. And when I say the existing variability, I just mean the ups and the downs, the kind of swings between warm and cold conditions that are normal in Minnesota. Those will always be there. And we're also always going to have season to season changes. So we're not looking at moving towards a state where every season is just the same as the last one, or every year is the same as the last one. So we have variability that's superimposed over our climate, and it's going to be there all the time. But we also have these trends or these changes that we can measure, and that we can say, wow, yeah, Minnesota has warmed by an average of about 3 degrees Fahrenheit since the beginning of our period of record. And a lot of that warming has really been in the last 5 decades. And most of that warming has actually been from winter. So we can see that, but that doesn't mean that, therefore we'll never get cold again. Or if we also have a trend towards getting wet, and this is one that Luigi likes to talk about too. We've been getting wetter, but that doesn't mean that drought's going away. In fact, it's really important that people understand that drought's not going away, even though we've been getting wetter. And so I think, an instance of weather, a really cold day, a really cold week, even a really cold winter, does not mean that the changes that have been going on now for years and even decades does not mean that those changes are somehow overturned.
Well, and that was a question we had from Emily. She wanted to know, so, okay, is climate change just affecting winter temperatures, or is it causing temperatures throughout the year to also rise?
I'll let one of my colleagues, I mean, we all talk about this, so I'll let one of my colleagues take that.
Say you, everyone.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, throughout the year, definitely climate change has impacted many levels. I mean, I always talk about the overnight minimums, and winter is the biggest impact. The only thing we haven't seen much of a change, and Kenny can correct me if I'm wrong, is high temperatures in the summer really haven't changed much.
Right.
So people always think automatically, oh, it's getting super hot. And that's not really the way to look at it. It's overall warmth for the whole year. Yes, but July maximum temperatures, maybe not so much.
Right.
July minimum temperatures, on the other hand, bingo.
Right.
And an interesting note about what Kenny mentioned about our warmer winters is that it's the increase in the minimum temperatures in the winter that are showing the biggest signal. So we often joke and say that it's actually getting less colder.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yes. More so than, because the problem with the terminology that we all have to use is that most of us, when we hear the word warmer, we kind of associate that with hotter, and we picture, the room is actually getting warmer. But what if the way that the room is getting warmer is that you've actually tamped out all of the drafts, so now there's not as much cold air getting in. It's a little different from the heat source like actually increasing, and so conceptually it's kind of difficult. But Luigi's right, we're getting less colder faster than we're getting hotter.
Yeah.
Right.
So on that note, what is the thing that fascinates the three of you the most about studying climate and weather?
Yeah, for me, it's really just, whether you live in Minnesota or whether you live in Egypt or anywhere in the world, and it doesn't matter what you do. If you're a climatologist, if you're a lawyer, if you're a doctor, if you're a truck driver, you're going to think about the weather at least a little bit each day. It impacts what you're going to wear that day. Maybe you don't go on a picnic because it's forecasted to rain, and that's always just fascinated me from childhood.
Well, and Pete, you keep records, don't you? So I imagine you can see quite a few trends. Is that, teasing that out must be really interesting. I mean, since 1980, you've been keeping a log.
Yeah. Often with a few breaks, but, I took some time off. But the fact how interesting our weather here is in Minnesota, it's often said like the best ideal weather is San Diego, California, but I would never want to live there because it would be so incredibly boring weather-wise. I've been to Los Angeles. It's the boringest weather possible, almost. So this is where you want to be if you like weather. You're in the right spot. So, I mean, there's all parts of the weather I like. By about this time of the year, I hate to say it, sometimes I'm looking forward to the first big snowstorm. In the spring, I'm looking forward to the first big thunderstorm. So all throughout the year, it's always a variety, something to look forward to.
I can imagine we have people watching us right now who are saying, no, stop. Don't talk about snow yet.
Oh, people love winter. People are, I mean, I know that not every Minnesotan, and especially it seems that the longer you've been here, the more likely you are to kind of have grown sort of tired of winter. But what we've found from talking to people, I mean, winter is a resource. People treasure it, and we have probably more than the other seasons. I mean, I go back and forth on this because we have thousands and thousands and thousands of lakes, and we like using them. We love our water resources, especially when it's warm. But it seems that winter really kind of defines Minnesota, and a lot of people identify with winter. And by late August, early September, I know I'm not speaking for everyone, but this is when we start hearing, okay, I'm ready for summer to be over. I will take a good, strong showing of weather in any season, whether it's a hot day or a cold day. Give me a July 4th snowstorm. I'll take it. Give me a thunderstorm in mid-January. I'll take it. But I think a lot of people really feel sort of exhausted by summer, especially a warm and humid summer. By about Labor Day weekend, and they're really ready for that switch. I'm just going to throw in kind of similar to what Luigi and Pete said. The thing that fascinates me the most is this element of surprise. I mean, even though climate is generally slower and slower moving and larger area than weather, we still don't really know what we're going to be saying when we summarize the coming winter. We don't know what it's going to be like. And if you think back 2 winters ago where we ended up having a tremendous amount of snow in February and it got brutally cold at the end of January, that was all stuff that we never saw coming. In fact, the professionals who try and do the seasonal forecasts never saw it coming. And it ended up being one of the greatest winters, right? I mean, from just a pure seasonal appreciation standpoint, I know it was hard on a lot of people, but I think it's that kind of thing. We don't know. Are we going to end up, is fall going to just be blasé, or is something really exciting going to happen? What are we going to add to the Climate Journal, which is our office's kind of long running diary of interesting weather events? And we don't know. We don't know what we'll be writing about in November, which is just a couple months away. So that's what I like.
Or October even.
Or October, or even September, right?
Right.
I was going to say, or next week, maybe.
Yeah, right. We don't
You know
know.
what? It's been a long time since we've had a good September snowfall in the Twin Cities.
So you're saying we're due?
I always like throwing that kind of thing out there.
Well, and I'll tell you,
blizzard?
I agree with what you're saying, Kenny. I mean, I'm originally from Los Angeles, one of the places where the weather just is the same all the time. And that's the thing that I probably love the most about Minnesota. I love the changing of the seasons. Winter does not bother me. My friends and family who still live in California find that insane that the 20 below days don't bother me. Of course, I always tell them that you can always put on clothing. It's mighty hard to take it off. In the summertime when it's 90 degrees and 90% humidity, there's just nothing you can really do about that. So I would agree with you. I think that fascination with weather is part of what binds us together here in Minnesota.
Well, and Luigi, you had been in Louisiana. And what was it like coming back to Minnesota as a climatologist and as just a person experiencing the weather?
To really bookend that, I should let you know, I grew up in Winnipeg, Canada. So I grew up in a Minnesota-like climate, and then was offered a position at Louisiana State University. And my first year there was the year that Hurricane Ivan was heading right for New Orleans. And I'd been fascinated with hurricanes, but never really experienced one before. And I was actually kind of hoping it would come to Louisiana, but at the last second it turned and hit Floribama. But the following year we had Katrina. And I remember, to answer your question, Kenny, remember driving down from Saskatoon, where I was finishing up graduate school, all the way down to Louisiana. By the time we hit Arkansas, you could feel the maritime tropical air slap you in the face. I mean, the dew point was probably close to 80. And the closer every gas station we stopped at, it just got more and more putrid. And I just did not do well in that humidity. And then so I lived there for 13 years, and then I came back to Minnesota, and I thought, oh, I grew up in Winnipeg. These winters are nothing, and I was completely declimatized. And it took me, I think, last winter, which was probably the most mild winter that I've had since I moved here, was probably the first winter that I was able to absorb and enjoy.
Well, and I hear you on that, Luigi. I lived in Texas for many years, and that humidity is unlike, we complain about our humidity here, but it's nothing like they get in the South. So
yeah, our best day here in Minnesota is just a pretty average day down south.
Exactly. So we only have about 4 minutes left, and I really want all of you to be able to talk about what you do at the State Climatology Office, because I don't think a lot of folks even know we have a state climatology office, much less that it's associated with the Minnesota DNR. So talk a little bit about what you do. And basically what you're doing for the people of Minnesota with regard to climate and weather.
Well, I guess I'll jump in first. For me, I run a network of about 1,400 rain gauge observers that go out every day, look at a rain gauge, and report on how much precipitation they got. And we've been doing that for over 40 years, and it's kind of the backbone of our weather data that we have for Minnesota. And many people use that data for planning and what has happened in the past. Many levels of government, ordinary people, farmers, all kinds of people use that data. So it's a great volunteer effort by the citizens of Minnesota to do that. And so that really kind of everybody likes to watch the weather. So it's kind of one of the things we do here.
So Kenny, Luigi, what about you guys? Talk a little bit about what you do and how it relates to folks who might not even know that you're there doing it.
Yeah, so probably our biggest focus is on what we call climate services. And climate services is any type of request, whether it be data or information that serves any kind of request that would have a climate aspect to it. So we get calls from attorneys looking for climate data on lawsuits. We get calls from other agencies looking for climate information to fit whatever needs that they have. We get calls from people, just local citizens who are looking for data because maybe it hailed and they have an insurance claim. We do a lot of applied climate research, and Kenny's done a lot of climate research on climate change, where he's found significant trends in temperature and precipitation. As the state climatologist, I oversee our climate services, and I also manage our data systems, our databases, and our climate data information, and serving that on the web, maintaining it on our servers. And I also represent the state climate office abroad. We have a national association called the American Association of State Climatologists. I think there are 48 state climatologists right now, and we're all members, and we help each other out with respect to how we can do a better job of serving climate data to the public, working together with other state agencies like NOAA, the regional climate centers, the National Weather Service forecast offices, and agencies like the United States Drought Monitor. So we're always monitoring drought on a weekly basis. The list just goes on and on. I suggest you just visit our website and have a look at that as well. Kenny?
Yeah, it's well said, Lou. I mean, our job is to collect and maintain, analyze, and disseminate climate information for Minnesota, its citizens, its agencies, its communities. And that entails quite a lot. And Luigi's very modest. He also builds an awful lot of the infrastructure that helps us deliver those services to Minnesotans. So if you've gone online and seen any really neat tools that allow you to graph our climate or pull up, recent temperature precipitation anomalies, there's a really good chance that Luigi built that. And one of the things I do is I try and help people understand what's going on with our climate and how does the changing climate, what does that mean for the climate that's very familiar to all of us, and what's it mean here in Minnesota? Get people kind of on the same page about that, because as you might imagine, there's a lot of disparate information out there, and people have a lot of different assumptions about what's going on. And so that's what I do. Thanks, Kim. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. I'm fascinated personally by what you all do, and I love listening to you talk every time you stop by central office to chat with all of us. So it's a real treat for me personally to be able to chat with you all here today. Before we go, because we just have, we're a little bit over, but I just want to ask, does anybody have any predictions about what we're going to see for winter this year?
Pete, go for it. Pete, put Pete on the spot first.
Sure. I think we'll have a real winter this year. I think we'll at least have normal-ish snow for the Twin Cities. That's 56 inches of snow. might start out a little slow, but then pick up as we get into January. Is that vague enough?
a real winter. So when does the snow melt, Pete?
When does the snow melt?
Yeah. When does the
When
snow
it
melt?
gets above freezing, Kenny.
I know. That was an artful dodge.
All right. So everybody, you heard it here. Pete claims we're going to have a normal winter with around 56 inches of snow. So we've got a little bit of time to get our snow blowers and shovels out and ready. So
Yeah, I mean, definitely if you're in Northeast Minnesota, you're going to see 100 inches or so of snow. It's going to be, they get that every winter up along the, on the Superior uplands and the Superior Ridge. They're going to get their snow this year.
that is just, I don't think, as much as we love winter, Kenny, I'm just not sure that that's what we all want to hear. But
Well, again, I said Northeast Minnesota. I mean, Chaska might be protected from that, but Isabella, not so much.
Yeah.
well, thank you, all three of you, for joining us here today. We've had with us Kenny Blumenfeld. He's a senior climatologist, Pete Boulay, a climatologist, and Luigi Romolo is Minnesota's state climatologist, and they are all with the State Climatology Office that is through the DNR. All of you, thank you so much. Fascinating discussion. Can't wait to do it again soon.
Good talking with you. Thanks.
Yep.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.